I was inspired with the design of this mini planter from a picture I found of a macrame planter on Pinterest. It is surprisingly quick to make and absolutely stunning for boho decor. Stay tuned! For a full list of supplies, see the description box below. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using Peaches and Cream, which is a size 4 worsted weight cotton. It is 100% cotton, and I will be using the color Ecru. You can find the rest of the information right here. You can get it at yarnspirations.com. I will be using 2 skeins at a time because I'm going to be using double strands like you see here to make it more durable. You are also going to need a wooden ring, and I'm going to measure it here for you. It's about 2.75 inches or about 70 millimeters. You will also need 2 stitch markers. And if you want to add the beads to the tassel like I did this one, you're going to need about 7 to 10 10mm beads. I also got this little lilac blossom from Walmart. It's fake, but it actually looks so pretty inside of it. So this piece is worked in 2 different pieces. First part is worked from the wooden ring down, and then the second part you make the little planter area, and then you join the 2 together as you go along on the last round of the planter and add the tassel last. So we're going to be starting with the ring. Leave yourself a long tail to weave in, and we are going to begin by placing your wooden ring between your hook and your working yarn and making a slip stitch. Now we are going to bring our yarn back and around the front and chain 1. This chain 1 will not count as a stitch, it's just to secure the yarn onto the ring a little bit better. So for the first strand, we are going to chain 26. Now you are going to turn and work into the second chain from your hook. We are going to make a single crochet in the second chain from our hook and in every stitch across until you reach the wooden ring. And again, don't forget that our very first chain is not a stitch. So by the end of this row, you should only have 25 single crochet. Here I am at the very last stitch. I'm going to place my last single crochet in it. And now it's very important that you pay attention so that the right side of your work is always facing forward. Make sure that the beginning tail and the knot is pointing down to the right. Now we are going to slip stitch into the wooden ring one more time. And we're going to chain 1 again to secure it even further. Remember that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So for the next strand, we are going to be chaining 16. Again, you will turn and place a single crochet in the second chain from your hook. And in each stitch across until you reach the wooden ring again. At the end of this row, you should only have 15 single crochet. Here I am at the very last stitch. I'm going to place my last single crochet inside of it, and I'm going to shift my ring so that the beginning tail is to the bottom right corner, making sure that all the strands are facing in the same direction. And now we are going to slip stitch into the ring and chain 1 to further secure. Again, that does not count as a stitch. Now we are going to make one more shorter strand, just like the one we just did. So again, you will chain 16, just like we just did on the last strand. Now you are going to single crochet into the second chain from your hook, and in each stitch across until you reach the wooden ring. So here I've got my beginning tail to the bottom right corner again, and I have the 2 shorter strands. I'm going to slip stitch into the ring once more and chain 1 to further secure. We are going to make our last strand, and it is going to be another long one like we began with. So you will chain 26 once more for our last strand. Again, you will single crochet in the second chain from your hook, and we are going to be doing this one just a little bit differently. You are going to want to get your longer strand that is already completed and get it to where the right side is facing you, and count down to the 8th stitch. You need to mark the 8th stitch from the wooden ring. And now on the chain that you are working on, you need to count down to the 8th stitch again, and you're going to mark that stitch as well. So now you are going to continue making your single crochet all the way until you reach that stitch marker that's on your chain, and then we're going to do something different. So here I have my single crochet made till I reach the stitch marker, and now I'm going to bring the 2 stitches that are marked together. Make sure they are not twisted. It's very important. So going into the 8th stitch of the completed side first, put your hook in the 8th stitch down. Now you are also going to put your hook into the 8th chain down. And you are going to make a single crochet like you normally would, only maybe just a tad bit looser. It's that easy. Now you're going to continue making single crochet up the rest of your chain that you're working on. You should still only have 25 single crochet in the strand you just created. They are just going to be joined together at the 8th stitch. Now you will slip stitch into the wooden ring and chain one last time. You're going to fasten off, leaving yourself a length of tail so that you can weave it in. This is what your piece should look like. So go ahead and weave those tails in and set it to the side. Now we are going to work on the planter portion. You are going to need to grab your stitch marker because it is worked in the continuous round and you don't want to get lost. So you're going to begin by chaining 2. In that very first stitch that you made, you're going to place 5 single crochet inside of that stitch. So you should have 5 single crochet, and I'm just going to explain this to you so that you understand what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to not increase on the 3rd stitch, on this stitch right here. So for the next several rounds, I'm going to increase on each side of it, but I am not going to increase in that stitch. And it's going to create the unique shape that we're looking for in this planter. So just keep that in mind. We're going to flank that stitch with increases. So in this very first stitch, you are going to make 2 single crochet, but be sure to mark your first stitch. Okay, and we are going to increase in the next stitch. So place 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Here we are at that middle stitch. We are not going to increase just like I talked about. So just put 1 in there. Now we're going to increase in the last 2 stitches, so put 2 single crochet in the next stitch. And once more. Okay, so we're going to continue in this fashion. Take your stitch marker out and put 2 single crochet in the very first stitch. We are going to be increasing in every other stitch on the outside stitches. So put 1 single crochet in the next stitch, put 2 single crochet in the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in the next. Here we are at that middle stitch, so we are not going to increase, so just put 1 single crochet in it. We're going back to increasing, so increase in the next stitch, make 1 single crochet in the next, increase in the next stitch, and put 1 single crochet in that very last stitch. Right quick, so it's not as confusing, I'm going to get rid of this strand back here that we began with. I'm going to weave it in. Take your stitch marker out and increase in the first stitch. Now we're going to increase every 3rd stitch, except the middle stitch. So increase in the first stitch and then put 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Don't forget your stitch marker like I did. Increase in the next stitch. Put 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now we've reached that middle stitch again. We are not going to increase in it. So just put one single crochet in the next stitch. Going back to increasing, so increase in the next stitch. Put one single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Increase in the next stitch. And put one single crochet in the last 2 stitches. Take your stitch marker out. Increase in your very first stitch. Now you are going to put a single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Increase in the next stitch. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Here we are at that middle stitch. We are not going to increase, so just put one single crochet in it. Going back to increasing, so increase in the next stitch. Place one single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Increase in the next stitch. Single crochet in the last 3 stitches. This is what your piece should be looking like. We're going to do one more round of increase. Increase in the very first stitch. Now you're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Increase in the next stitch. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. We are at that middle stitch, so we are not going to increase. Just do one single crochet in the next stitch. Back to increasing, so increase in the next stitch. Single crochet in the next 4 stitches. Increase in the next stitch. And single crochet in the last 4 stitches. When you are done with this round, you should have a total of 25 single crochet. This is what your piece should look like. Now we are done increasing, but we are going to continue to shape the planter. So now you're going to put one single crochet in the next 12 stitches. Now we are at that middle stitch that we have not been increasing in. We are simply going to just skip over that stitch. And we are going to single crochet in the last 12 stitches. When you are done with this round, you should have 24 single crochet. So we are going to do one more round to further shape this piece. So now you are going to put one single crochet in the next 10 stitches. So you should have 10 single crochet. Now we are going to single crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So we are decreasing. And we're going to do that once more. So single crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to finish off by single crocheting until we reach the stitch marker, which should be 10 more single crochet. So this is what your piece should look like. It should have this nice egg shape. And now we are going to combine the first part we made to our planter simultaneously as we finish the next round. So go ahead and grab the first piece that you made and grab the left strand of the first long strip. Make sure the right side is facing you. And you are going to count up to the 10th stitch. You need to place a marker in that 10th stitch. We are going to attach this side to the planter first. Now because our planter has 22 stitches and we're only attaching 10 on each side for the long strips, we are going to slip stitch into the next stitch to get us where we need to be. So go ahead and take out the stitch marker and slip stitch into the next stitch. Now we are going to be joining the piece to the planter, and it's very important that you go through the correct areas of each stitch. So I have this magnified really big to help you see what I'm doing. So here is the front loop of the next stitch. Here's the back loop. We are going through the front loop only of this next stitch. Now going through the stitch with our stitch marker, we are also going to be working through the front loop only of that stitch. And we are simply going to slip stitch them together. So we're going to do that all the way down till we have all 10 stitches attached. So going through the front loop only of the next stitch of the planter and the front loop only right here of the next stitch, we are going to slip stitch. So just continue slip stitching every stitch down through the front loops only. So now that we have this side done, this is what your piece should look like, and you need to take a moment and make sure that you have everything facing the right direction, that nothing is twisted, because we are in the final stages of this project and you don't want to have to take it out. So here is what it should look like. And now we are going to add the longer strip, to the other side. So go ahead and make sure the right side is facing out and line it up to the next stitch. So we are going to join it in the same fashion that we just joined the other side. So we're going through the front loop only of the next stitch and the front loop only of our very first stitch of the longer strip right here. And just simply slip stitch it together. So we're working back up the other side of the planter. So once you have the next 10 stitches, we will add the shorter strips. So now we have officially attached 10 stitches of each side of the planter, and we know that we have 22 stitches total in the planter. So we are going to be working in the last 2 stitches here at the top. This is a slip stitch, so it may look like a stitch, but it's not. It's when we slip stitched at the very beginning. So make sure you're not working into that slip stitch. So now once again, straighten up your piece and make sure that nothing is twisted. And we are going to make sure that those 2 shorter strips in the very back are behind the 2 longer strips to begin with. And then we are going to take the ends and bring them around the front and join them at the planter. So starting with the shorter strip on your far right, we are going to join them in the same method, going through the next stitch in the front loop only, and through the front loop only of that shorter strip on the right, we are going to slip stitch. And we are going to do the exact same thing to the other strip. Make sure nothing is twisted. Going through the front loop only of the next stitch and the front loop only of the shorter strip, slip stitch. Now you're going to fasten off here because we are done for the most part, but I'm going to clean that up just a little bit. So I'm leaving myself a length of tail so that I can sew it up. I feel like it could look a lot better. So I'm just going to show you how I sewed it up, just to clean up those shorter strips there. I'm also going to sew these two pieces together just to further strengthen it since it's going to have a little bit of weight in it. And now you're just going to fasten off and weave in your tails. And I find it's easier to weave in tails when you do them one at a time when you're working with double strands. I think it's kind of humorous. This looks like a little tiny toilet. So in order to fix that, I'm going to fix the issue plus add the tassel. So I'm taking a piece of paper that is about 7 inches wide, but you could of course use cardboard. It's a little easier, but I couldn't find any today. So I'm just going to use a piece of paper that is 7 inches wide, and I'm going to use double strands to make it go a little faster. And I'm going to wrap this piece of paper 10 times. This is going to be the tassel tails. Okay, now you're just going to set those aside, and I'm going to cut a length of yarn. I don't really measure this. And I'm going to go from underneath this very first stitch and bring it out the top. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle and go on the opposite one and go from top to bottom. And now I'm just going to make my ends even and tie them together. This is going to get rid of the tiny toilet seat while giving me something to attach the tassel with. So now you're going to open the strands there and grab your tassel tails, fold them in half, try to get them even on both sides, and then just set it inside those strands and tie them around the center of the tassel tails. Now I'm going to wrap some yarn around the top of the tassel to keep the ends from going wild. And I'm going to do it about an inch down. And I'm going to show you a different way than what I've ever done. I think this is how most macrame artists do their tassels. It's hard to tell, but I'm going over the top of the bottom tail that I started with there to try to secure it. And there's really no rhyme or reason to how many times you wrap it. Just wrap it until you like it. So now I'm going to grab my yarn needle, thread this tail right here through the yarn needle, and I'm just going to hide that tail through the yarn I just wrapped. Then I'm just going to cut it off. And I'm going to do that with the other strand I began with as well. Just going to hide it inside the yarn that I just wrapped for the tassel. Now we are pretty well done, but you're welcome to add beads to the tassel like I did here. And basically I just put them on random strands and tied a knot at the bottom to keep them from falling off. I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason. I don't think I'm going to do it on this one though, because I want to try dip dyeing. So I think I'm going to dye the tassel on this one. I also wanted to show you that because of the shape of the planter, it's kind of an odd shape. So when you put your plant in there, it may not want to stay. It may want to like fall forward. So just squish it kind of flat there and push the plant down, and it should hold its shape a lot better. And you are done. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.